by using the ID of that particular tenant out here. So what I do is, let's go here into the Azure portal. And where do I get my tenant ID again? Active Directory. So this is my account. I'll go into my Azure Active Directory and I'll copy my tenant ID. This is my tenant ID. I'll copy this out. I'll go back into my PowerShell script, and this is something that I'm doing for the very first time. Every time I don't have to do this. For the very first time when you try to log in, this is what you get. I'll say hyphen tenant ID, and I'll pass my tenant ID that I'll copy in quotes. In double quotes, I'm passing my tenant ID. So what I'm doing is I'm giving one additional parameter called hyphen tenant ID, and I'll run this out. Now do you see it's now giving me in return telling what connect hyphen AZ account is connected to what classes Azure Devops Visual Studio Enterprise subscription, and it's also giving me the ID of my tenant. This is the output that you need to get when you log in. Sometimes you might not get this ID at all. The subscription ID at all is not displayed. Please run the login again. Please run the login with this additional flag called hyphen tenant ID and give your tenant ID of here to properly log in into your account out here. So give a proper tenant ID and you will be able to log in. I mean, you will be able to, let's say, get logged into your account as such. Yes, any questions to here on how do I log into it? So I'm able to log in by using what? The connect hyphen AZ account. I'm able to only use, let's say, connect hyphen AZ command because I've installed the Azure module for PowerShell. If I haven't used the Azure module for PowerShell, I wouldn't have even be able to log in here. All right, so I logged in right now. So let's do one thing. Let's clear the screen firstly. And let's start fresh. So I have installed my PowerShell. After install, I have logged into my PowerShell using, let's say, that particular module, and I've used a command called connect-az account, and I've logged into it. The first thing that I actually want to do is that I want to see what are all the resource groups that are present on my Azure portal. This is the first thing that I want to do. Let's go back into my Azure portal firstly, and firstly let's check: do I have any resource groups? I have. I have multiple resource groups in my Azure portal. I've created as a part of the earlier demo. So I have something called demo VM. I have something called demo app service and all these things out. So let me go back into that particular machine and let me start writing a command to get all my resource groups. And what do you think will be the command here to get something? Get hyphen. What do I want to get? Resource groups running on what? Azure portal. So the command here is simply get hyphen az resource group. It's AZ module that you are using, and you want to get what? The resource group in Azure. If you want to get a storage account, you will say get hyphen AZ storage account. If you want to get a virtual machine, you will say AZ VM or something like that. So you need to append something called AZ in the beginning of everything to go ahead and, let's say, get something. And let me run this out. So I'm now firstly logged in, and after that, what is it now displaying? All the resource groups that are there in my Azure portal. Every resource group that is actually present in my Azure portal, I'm getting all these things out here right now. So these are the three resource groups. I'm getting this. But let's say I only want the name of the resource groups, not all these things, that the location and, let's say, all things like, let's say, something like a provisioning state, resource ID. No, I don't want to get all these things out. I just need the name of my resource groups. Is it possible? Yes. How is it possible? Yes. What I can do is I can put a bracket around this command, and I can say dot resource group name. I can either do this, or you can say, if you don't want to do this, you can say pipe select hyphen object, and you can say resource group name. You're just selecting one property called resource group name. Personally, I feel this one is easier, wherein I can just go ahead, place these brackets, and kind of get my job done. This is one of the most easiest way. And if I go ahead and run this out, you see what I'm getting right now? I'm only getting the names. Only the names are getting displayed, not everything. Just the names are getting displayed out here. And I have a demo VM, I have a network water RG, I have something called what? Demo app service and all these things out here. And if you only want to get a location, I'll say get hyphen easy resource group dot location. You'll get name and then you'll get only, let's say, the location out here. If you want to get both name and the location, then that's where you start using something called as a pipe. This is where pipeline actually comes into picture, wherein I would say just take all these things out. I'll put a pipe here. I'll say select, and you can just give a select out here, which is good enough. I'll say resource group name, comma, location. I just want to select these two properties that I get, and if I run this out, you see how the output is, let's say, changing. So it depends what you actually want to, let's say, select, what you actually want to, let's say, filter out and all that stuff. Is any questions here on how do I get a resource group in Azure? How do I really, let's say, get a resource group out here in Azure as such?
Sir, what is the use of PowerShell? So you can create it on Portal also.
You can create it on portal, but what if I tell you that please go and create 100 resource groups at one go, but please give me it in 5 minutes? Can you do it using portal? Can you do it using a portal? In let's say I'm giving a very hyper target. Let's say I'll give you 30 minutes. I'll ask you to go ahead and create 100 different resource groups. You'll do hook or group, and what you have to do right now is that if you are a team manager, you'll have to, let's say, put around 5 or 6 resources of your team and ask them, let's say, go and take 20 resource groups, each and everyone go and create 20 resource groups up here. But I'm blocking 8 resources for that particular 30 minutes or 1 hour for you to go ahead and create something of it. What if I tell you, okay, fine, you created 100 resource groups, great. Each and every resource group needs to have at least 10 storage accounts. Each and every storage account needs to have at least 10 containers. How do you create this using the Azure portal?
How to access the
I'm sorry?
how to access the Android button create on PowerShell?
I'll also talk about that. We'll see what is the RBAC and all that stuff. It's called get hyphen AZ, role assignment, and all these things. We'll talk about that. But yes, PowerShell is used for automating things. Automation will be your primary bread and butter. So yes, you are right. It's good enough. Meaning, portal is good if you want to create 1 or 2 resource groups. But if it exceeds that, then it's no longer worth to go into the portal and create all these things out there. You need some kind of a scripting. Again, I'll again give you a scenario. You created a storage account, someone deleted it out. How do you restore it very quickly? You need to have a script that runs in the background which restores all these things in the background, etc. So automation comes there. Automation comes in maintaining your configuration. Automation comes in picture when you want to, let's say, achieve things very quickly in a short span of time. Because what I can do is I can run a script in the background. I can go out, go for a tea break, go for a coffee break, something like that, or I can focus my energy on something else. Why should I, let's say, invest my energy into something which is so manual, something which is so redundant, right? I can let the automation take care of it. That's where PowerShell or that's where ARM, that's where Terraform actually comes into picture.
Then create an environment in the PowerShell.
I'm sorry,
Create an environment in the PowerShell.
create or
Environment.
invite users in PowerShell. Yes, you can do that. You can do a new hyphen easy role assignment. You can do that. You can do everything what you're doing on the portal using PowerShell. You can do that too.
Sir, can we clone from Portal also?
Clone from portal. What do you exactly want to clone from the
If
portal?
it is there, then you copy on code from Portal to local.
Okay.
This is also possible.
No. PowerShell, you cannot extract PowerShell from the portal. You'll have to write your own logic. ARM, yes, you can do that. ARM, I'll say still you can go and extract it from the portal, but PowerShell, no. You cannot get a code out of PowerShell. You cannot get a code out of the portal. You'll have to design your own logic.
by command.
Yes, by using commands, you'll have to design your own logic. Is any more questions here?
So while you are using select object, do we need to use property command or no need?
You need a property command if you use a select object. That's the reason I'm not doing a select object. I'm directly doing, let's say, something like select. I'm selecting all the properties out here.
So currently Azure portal only for users only.
Azure portal
Maximum
is
use
not.
scripting language like what you say PowerShell and Terraform.
Can you come again, please, with the question?
Azure only for users only.
Azure for user addition only. No, even user addition can be done using PowerShell. So the point here is that you don't even have to touch Azure portal at all. You don't even have to touch the Azure portal. You can use everything from PowerShell and you can start, let's say, automating things out and all those things.
But you have to create the account, then only you have to do PowerShell.
Yes, you need to have at least one account out there. Only then you can start doing PowerShell and all these things out. Yes, any more questions, guys? Anyone online?
Hi, Kiran.
Good. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, Kiran. What is meant by remote signed while executing the execution policy?
Again, there are a lot of execution policies that are available out there. Remote signed meaning you can only run scripts that are signed by someone, meaning there is something called signature that is signed by someone. Only those scripts, that is something that you can run out there. All signed, remote signed, they talk about those things out there. Yes, anyone, any more questions, guys? Right, so let's go back into our partial and let's start creating a resource group, because now we do not have a resource group. Let's say we need to create a resource group called test-01. This is a resource group that I want to create, and I want to create this resource group in a location called West US2 or East US2, whatever it is. In order to create something, now to get something, it is get hyphen. To modify something, it is set hyphen. To create something, it is new hyphen. It's always new hyphen. And I want to create what? A resource group on the Azure portal. So I'll say AZ resource group. Automatically it will load the command. I'll say hyphen or space and then hyphen. I need to pass very importantly two things. One is the name, the other is what? The location. So I'll say name. I'll say something like test-01 is my name. Okay. Guys, please go on mute if you're not speaking. Alright, so let's do a new hyphen AZ resource group. I'll say hyphen name test-01 out here. Hyphen location. I'm giving a location right now. And I can go ahead and do something like a central US or east US or whatever it is that you need to want. And you can go ahead and do what? A run of this particular script. Do you see it took around a second to go ahead and let's say create this out? It's now telling that what? Test-01 is provisioned and the provisioning state is what? Successful. It's telling the resource group is there. So let's check in the portal whether the resource group got created actually or not. So let's go there. Again, I don't see this one. I just refresh my screen, and even after a refresh, I don't see this again. The usual time, meaning when you create something in PowerShell, and when you want to see the same on the Azure portal, it will take 1 to 2 minutes because of your browser cache, because of a lot of things out here, the network and all these things out here. It will take around 1 to 2 minutes for that particular resource group to be created and to be shown here. And S01 that got created using a PowerShell script from see let's say or using let's say PowerShell script that I've run. I'm just doing let's say something like test-01. I have created this out. Let's say you want to create now. This is where PowerShell actually has an edge over the manual creation out here. I just created one. Let's say I want to create 3 or 4 resource groups out here in one go. Then what do I have to do? What do you think that I have to do out here? Can I write something like this? Can I copy this link S02 I'll say test 03. I'll say test 04. Can I do this one? Can I go and run all these commands at one go? Yes, no, maybe. Yes, no. Yes, no. Why no? If no, why no? If yes, why yes? Takes time. I'll have to write all these things. I mean, I can do it. I can still go and write all these things and I can do it. But this is not the intention of automation. I could have well done it on the portal. Right? If I have done this one, I could have well done it on the portal. But this is not my intention to do. This is not what I intend to do out here. I intend to automate the creation out here. So what I can do is this. Let's remove all these commands out here. I will now declare an array. This is what I'm now telling, that how can you apply the Windows knowledge to PowerShell out here. How do you declare an array? At the rate something. Now I'll declare an array of resource group names, not some random names, some resource group names. Instead of telling Kiran, Suresh, and Mahesh, I'll test 02, test 03, and test 04. This is what I'll do. So I'll say RG names is equal to at the rate open close. I'll say it is test 02. Again, this is manual in nature. The way I'm entering is manual in nature. I'll also show you how to automate this out. I'll say test 03. I will say test 04. So what does this array consists of right now? It consists of all the resource group names. So instead of now declaring, let's say, just some random names like Kiran, Suresh, and Mahesh and doing a write host, I'm now telling this is now, let's say, RG names. It's telling test 02, 03, and 04 out here. So if I now just see what is there in the RG names, it's now an array of what? The resource group names out here. And can I do a for each on this one? Can I do a for each loop? I can do a for each loop. I can say for each, I can say dollar name in dollar $rg names. This is why I was telling that we need for each for loops and all that stuff. I'll say write host. I'll say attempting to create an RG with the name dollar name. I'm attempting to create. Meaning I'm just writing a statement that I'm attempting to create a resource group with this name. What I can do is that this command is any which ways there. I have this command called new hyphen AZ resource group to create a resource group. I'll cut this out, paste it inside the loop. Instead of saying that the name is test 01, I'll say the name is what? Dollar name. Not dollar $rg names, because dollar $rg names is an array of names. I cannot use an array. If I do use an array, I'll fail. It will fail to create it out. I can also show you that it will fail to create out. I need to use something called what? Dollar name out here. So if I now execute this out, it took me less than around 2 or 3 seconds to go ahead and create this out here. If I do the same thing on the portal, I would have taken around 2 or 3 minutes to go ahead and create this out. The complexity increases as and when you have multiple, let's say, resource groups that you need to process and you need to create all these things also. If I go here now, again, it will take me a minute or so to, kind of get reflected. My browser cache will come into picture and all these things out here. But you see now what is happening? Sources, this 1, 2, 3, 4, everything got created using my PowerShell script directly. I'm not even touching my portal out here. I'm just using a PowerShell script and let's say creating all these things. So yes, so the assignment for today is this one. Is firstly do a practice of how to go ahead and install the PowerShell module, how to do a simple login, a basic login, and how to create a resource group out here. But what I want you all to think about is this. Let's see. In my portal, I have demo app service, demo VM, network RJ, test 01, 02, 03, 04, and etc. My question for you all is that firstly, how do you delete a resource group? I showed you how to create one. Now my question for you is that how do you delete an RG using PowerShell? Second thing is that how do you do a for each loop and remove all these things out? and remove all the resource groups. But here a condition here is that all the resource groups that are starting with test, the rest of the resource groups you shouldn't even touch it. So create a couple of resource groups starting with A, B, C, X, Y, Z, test 01, 02, 03, and etc. I only want you all to figure out the logic and how do you do a for each loop to remove all the resource groups that are starting with test. Anything after test, I don't care. Wildcard. 01, 02, 03, I don't care. After this, go ahead and delete this out. This is what is the logic that you need to, let's say, think about. Again, the intention here is that you don't, let's say, go ahead and write the entire logic. Please think about it. Please think in that direction. Force yourself to think in that direction because PowerShell is all about logic. No matter how much I teach you, until unless you don't design your own logics, it will be very difficult. Because when I started with PowerShell, this is what the problem I used to face. I used to watch a video, I used to write the PowerShell. When I see the video and write the PowerShell, it is good. I'm able to get it. But when I'm trying to think on my own, that's when I face difficulties. So what you need to do at this particular time is that try to think on your own. Because it's all about logic. I can write PowerShell in one way. You can write PowerShell in the other way. You're not wrong. I'm not wrong. You're not correct. I'm not correct. Anything that goes fine is good enough. That's it. So try to think your own logic. Try to think how you can, let's say, achieve the same thing in a different way. If it throws you error, not a problem. Good enough. If it throws you error, it's actually good. You're learning something. If it throws you error, please try to, let's say, take that error to a Google search. See how people are, let's say, rectifying that error. That will help you, let's say, overcome things around. Yes, any questions, guys, before I close?
Creating the resource group,
Correct.
test one, test two, different locations, US, UK.
Yes. Same thing. I'll ask you the same question again. Very first class, we did something called Kiran belongs to Pune, Mahesh belongs to Mumbai, and all that stuff, right? Can you apply the same logic here? Test 01, let's say in let's say location 1, test 02 in location 2, test 03 in location 3, and etc. Wanna do it? For loop. Inside that for loop, write that particular logic called new hyphen AZ resource group hyphen name is dollar name bracket dollar I dot location dollar location dot bracket I. You can do that, right? That's the reason I'm now telling that now we are trying to apply whatever we learned in Windows PowerShell into Azure PowerShell. That's my intention, or that's my goal. We'll look at that also. Different resource group, different location, all these things.
How to
Yes.
invite the user in PowerShell?
I'm sorry.
Show me how to invite the PowerShell.
Again, I'll tell you what. First, try this out. Inviting user, you can do it later. Try this out first. If you want to do that, please go into the documentation. Say role assignment. You have the entire documentation to do it. Role definition, you have role, you have new roles, and all that stuff. You have the entire documentation to do this. How to invite the user, how to, let's say, add the user, and all these things. But firstly, but before going into that, please understand the basics. You can go here later, not a problem. If you want this, uh, just go here, do role assignment in Azure PowerShell. He'll give you the entire documentation for it called new role assignment and all these things. Just go ahead and look at this one. We'll have a lot of examples out here on how to go ahead and do a role assignment. Do you see there is something called a role here saying that sign name Alan something at the rate something reader allow delegation all that stuff. So just look at this and this will help you, let's say, do a role assignment and whatever you want to do out here. Yes, any questions, guys? Anyone any questions?
Sir, the location is same for
Hi,
multiple
Kiran.
locations.
Just a second, sorry. I was just saying a question offline. I'll just come back to you in a minute. Please.
Instead of giving the inverted commas, we can directly declare it and we will not giving space because since those are static names, we can directly declare
As in like in the array? You're talking about?
like a new AZ resource group or name or resource group name, location. Directly we can give location name like central US instead of
Yes.
giving the inverted commas.
You can directly give a
Those are
location
static names.
in central use, but it's a best practice to give it in quotes. Sometimes PowerShell doesn't recognize spaces; it might throw errors. So best practice to give it in quotes. Someone online had a question, sir. Go please.
Yes,
Hello.
Kiran, I have a question. Actually, we are creating the resources and managing the resources in Azure portal. using
Correct.
different sources like PowerShell and Azure CLI or
Mhm.
Azure portal itself. But how
Correct.
do we came to know which source is created?
That's the reason we don't recommend to go ahead and let's say run this out. Again, it doesn't tell you which source is creating let's say resource groups. It tells you who is creating the resource groups or who is creating let's say, or let's say if you look into the activity log, it just tells you who is creating it. It doesn't tell you who or who, let's say what is your source out there. Again, I have a lot of activity logs today. I've done a lot of things out here. So update the resource groups and etc. So do you see this? It's telling that I have created it. It doesn't tell you the source. It never tells you the source. So you can check with the user on which source he's let's say using out there. So I mean PowerShell or let's say ARM, it doesn't really tell you the source what creates it out. It just tells you what is the user who creates it out there. Maharshi is asking a question. Can I specify the subscription under which I create a resource groups? Yes, great question. You can do that. So when you log into Azure, if you want to specify a subscription, say this command called or write this command called set hyphen az context space hyphen the subscription and give the name of your subscription like let's say free trade. This is how you set the subscription on which you want to create the resource group as such. The reason that you need to do this is because under one tenant you can have multiple subscriptions. So firstly you need to set which subscription you need to let's say create these resources and you can go ahead and create this out here. So the command here is set hyphen az context and hyphen the subscription of it. This is the command that you need to let's say use in order to go ahead and set your subscription, and you can set the subscription where you are let's say running this PowerShell script under. Yes, any more questions, guys? Anyone? Any more questions out there?
How to sign out from the
I'm sorry.
how to sign out from the portal.
How to sign out from the portal? Just like you do a connect, right? Just do a disconnect or logout hyphen az account. Anything works. So if you do a logout hyphen az account also, it works. So if you want to sign this out, you can say logout hyphen az account to log you out. Yes, any more questions, guys? Anyone? Any more questions here?
The last
All right.
command we
Good, please.
yeah,
I'm sorry. Can you please come again?
the last command we executed the command with write host. Is it possible without write
Which one you were talking about? This one
the resource group creating?
with the right host? Yes, of
Yes,
course, it is possible without the right host. It's
for
just this one.
understanding.
Yeah, for understanding purpose, for let's say logging things out, you're doing right host out here, but you don't really have to give a right host. This is the main command which goes and creates resource groups for you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so with that, I'll close the session today. I'll take more questions tomorrow before we begin, and let's go ahead. Let's take a deep dive into let's say PowerShell with Azure. Let's do some multiple scripts out there. Let's understand a couple of let's understand a couple of requirements that normally you get in an organization. Let's try that. Okay, guys, thank you and have a good day ahead.
So can you suggest any YouTube channel for this?
I'll do it tomorrow. Like now, close the session. Right? So I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do that.